Great, we're going to get started on the Aerospace and Defense panel. So I guess a lot of cross-pollination has taken place. We're all optimistic moving forward, have the economic economist point of view. And we're really excited. Now we're gonna do an in-depth overview of the aerospace and defense industry. We have a slide about economic vitality in the county that was up previously. Talking about the wide array of industries, showing how we frankly are the envy and should be the envy of the U.S. if not world in terms of the diversity of our industries. And so today we're going to do a deep dive into aerospace defense. We have China Lake, we have Edwards, Mojave, we have significant technology invented it. We have, believe it or not, over 50 world firsts came out of China Lake. And so aerospace industry, in terms of our economy, employs about 22,000 folks, and that's just directly. It's not the indirect and induced portion. We know that we're number 4 for STEM jobs in the country, number 9 for engineering, and a lot of that has to do with what's happening in the aerospace and defense industry. And so we're going to get started. Scott O'Neill is going to be our first speaker. We're going to precede his overview with a video, but just to let you know, Scott O'Neill is the Executive Director of the Indian Wells Valley, EDC. Previously, he served, as he'll tell you, I believe 40, you must not age, but 40 plus years as Executive Director and Director of Research and Engineering for Naval Air Warfare Center Weapons. I just call it NAS, but in China, he was in charge of 5,200 employees. And you haven't aged either, so that's a great testament. Looking at his background, he has 3 degrees. BA Mechanical Engineering, old stomping ground, Seattle. Master's in Mechanical Engineering, USC. And to wrap that up, he's an MA in Management from MIT. Well, that's hard to top that. So as Scott will tell you, the China Lake, NAS basically creates a payroll of over $530 million a year. And it's very interesting. You see the workforce moving into there. There's a new cohort of 200 moving in this year. The average age is actually decreasing. You're getting the millennials and the like moving in. So you're having that again, not to be dead horse, that cross-pollination of all ages. And that's the thing. We were concerned about the aging out of the workforce. That's not happening in China Lake. So without further ado, I'll introduce Scott with his video, a minute and a half video of some of the activities in China Lake and Indian Wells Valley.
Sailors are forged from the sea.
Their weapons are forged at NOC WD.
Here's just some of the things we do.
We research and develop weapons that make the warfighter more lethal, and rapidly develop capabilities that keep our armed forces ahead of the game.
Whether we're building a better bomb or designing a software interface, the warfighter comes first.
We test weapons in real and virtual environments.
Modeling, simulation, and live testing are all combined to ensure that our weapons meet the warfighter's needs.
We dominate the electromagnetic spectrum.
We bring 65 years of e-warfare expertise to the fight.
We make it possible to reliably put bombs and missiles on target.
Wait, great introduction. Scott O'Neill, please.
Any other questions? Richard, thank you for having us here. And I'm the executive director of the Economic Development Corporation for the Indian Wells Valley, which includes Ridgecrest and, of course, the military base at China Lake. The base at China Lake also has a campus at Point Mugu. So not only do we have inland ranges, but we have sea ranges, and some of the tests you saw off over the water were done off the Point Mugu Sea Range. So anyways, I think Kern County is postured for the future very well. I think what we heard this morning from the economists and looking at our local economies, things are looking pretty bright, I think. But I do think that a lot of the growth in Kern County, and I think one of the opportunities we've got, and I think the assets we've got, really is in the diversification of our industries. And over the last 20 years, you've seen commercial space grow out in Mojave. The defense at China Lake and at Edwards Air Force Base has done nothing but get stronger. And it will continue to grow as we bring on the Joint Strike Fighter, or the F-35, into both the Air Force and the Navy arsenals. And there'll be a lot of work to work out that weapon system and get our weapons compatible with that particular jet. So that's exciting. I do think that the growth that we see in the county is not only going to be in the traditional areas, but I think aerospace, renewable energies, and space access are going to be critically, and it's going to be huge. But one of my jobs as the Economic Development Corporation is to try to support, from an economic perspective, the Navy in the region. My cohort, Dave Janis, who is the executive director of the China Lake Alliance, which is a 501c4 corporation that supports the mission of the base, is here also. Dave, can you stand up and let people see who you are there? And because his job is also very important, because he gets to support the base in a way that the base can't support itself, and that's through supporting lobbying and things like that to make sure that the interest and the mission of the base is preserved through the Congress and through some of the support in those ways. So, but what is the Navy doing in Ridgecrest? The Navy's got 1.1 million acres of ranges, instrumented ranges out in the desert. The airspace over those ranges, R-2508, is a restricted airspace that covers 1/8 of the airspace over California. It's jointly managed by the general at Edwards Air Force Base and the general over at Fort Irwin on the eastern edge, with the admiral at China Lake. And so that asset is something that we couldn't put together today. It's been in place since 1943, and it's when the military really started moving into the valley. It was during the World War II years, and it's done nothing but grow. So the economy in the area is booming. You saw that this morning. Housing is in dire need. The base has been growing about, I'd say around, economically it's been growing about 15% a year. Right now the base did about $1.6 billion of business last year. And it's growing again at about 13 to 15%. The workforce at China Lake is growing about 5%. So where's the delta? The delta's in contracting. The base contracts out about $1 billion a year. $219 million of that is in Kern County. Okay? The base uses its credit card about $30 million a year. $3 million of that is spent in Kern County. That's through the credit card programs. And so I think that's going to continue to grow as the base itself continues to get more and stronger economically. And you'll see that in budgets. The military budgets are going up this year, if we'd ever get it passed. But the forecast is continued growth, and that just means nothing but I think goodness for both Edwards and China Lake. So growth is important. The median income, or the average income in the Ridgecrest area, is about $77,000 a year. Our entry-level salaries for kids out of college are about $65,000 a year. There is no housing available for them. So we are talking to builders, to be able to address that. So there's opportunity in that area. Commerce is growing. Of course, one of my jobs is quality of life, trying to make sure that we've got a place that people want to live so that we can retain those employees. But the education level in Ridgecrest is very high. We've got a significant portion of our citizenry both have bachelor's and master's and PhDs, and so it's fairly highly educated. And so we see positive growth. We see the Eastern Kern as a huge engine for the future of Kern County in general. And so I look forward to the dialogue that we'll have later this morning.
Thank you, Scott. And if anyone's interested, we spearhead an initiative called East Kern Economic Alliance. We're meeting in Ridgecrest tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Kern McGee Center. And yeah, it's amazing going out there and just seeing, literally meeting rocket scientists and firsthand experience. So so Scott represents, obviously, China Lake activity, Indian Wells Valley EDC, and we also want to move into discussion, which Roger will be about his company that's really taken off dynamically over the last few years. He's a very modest guy from Georgia, right, from near where I grew up, and he is the CEO of Sierra Technical Services. So when you think of UAVs and drones, these are not the ones that weigh about a pound that you can buy on Amazon. In fact, I asked Roger to bring it here, but he said it weighs a couple of tons. And it has, let's see, it's a 40-foot long as well as 24-foot wingspan. So not really conducive to bring it in here. But Roger, so according to their website, it's 5 GAT. It's 5 GAT, correct? Which means fifth generation aerial target. Yes. So, and he previously worked with BAE Systems. He has a civil engineering degree from Southern Polytech State, and really excited to he does not have a video of things blowing up, but he does have an exciting PowerPoint, and the fonts are really amazing. But I wanted him to visualize what they're doing. So Roger Hayes.
Thank you. I started this company in 2006 after retiring from first Lockheed after 21 years at the Lockheed Skunk Works, and then 6 years at BAE Systems in Mojave. I started this company primarily to develop that target. And that target you're looking at looks like just a regular little fighter airplane, has no cockpit. It is strictly an aerial target. And we have a contract. We won a contract a year ago this month to design and build at least one of these. The contract allows for up to 4 of them with options. We've been expecting the government to issue a option 2 any day now, that the continuing resolutions that the Congress was going through kept delaying and delaying and delaying that. But we still expect any time now to be turned on to build the second aircraft. First aircraft is in production. If you look at the size of the airplane, it's, like I said, 40 feet long, has a 24-foot wingspan. It has 2 jet engines with afterburners, and so it's quite a maneuverable fighter-like airplane. The U.S. Air Force and Navy have been shooting at aerial targets since the 1940s, remote-controlled airplanes since the 1940s. Most people think of drones as something that's come about in the last 10 years. It's been a long time. Most of the time, the government converts old fighter airplanes into drones, but unfortunately, they're running out of old fighter airplanes, and none of the old fighter airplanes represent the threats that we see currently today. Chinese just introduced a new J-20 stealth fighter, very similar to the F-22 in size, shape, and performance. The Russians have an Su-57 or T-50, which is also similar to size, shape, and stealthiness of the F-22. So we're no longer, because of budget cuts over the last couple of, maybe decade or so, we have not leading the industry or the world and development of these type of things like we did many years before that. We've allowed the other countries to catch up. And so this target is planned to provide a stealthy, threat representative aerial target for our Air Force, Navy, Army, to shoot at. Yeah, they'll shoot it down. To test their weapon systems, make sure that an air-to-air missile works against a stealthy target. If you don't test it before you engage in one, then you might not like the outcome. So they've been doing this right now. The Air Force shoots at QF-16s, which they take an F-16 fighter, convert it into a drone, and they shoot at it out over the Gulf of Mexico or Holloman Air Force Base down in New Mexico. And they've been doing this for years and years and years. But the F-16 does not have any stealth features. So this target, once it's completed, when it goes into production, would be more threat representative than anything that's in the inventory today. So there's a comparative picture to show you the size of it relative to an F-16C, which is a typical Air Force aircraft. I mentioned the Air Force. I also should include the Navy and the Army. They all shoot at it. The Army shoots it. They practice ground-to-air missiles to make sure they understand that they will hit stealthy targets, that they can track them. And the Navy also flies against these targets. Up until recently, the Navy used to have their own QF-4s out of Point Mugu, but that stopped doing that now. They all shoot at QF-16s off the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, the next slide. This is an aircraft that we helped develop for a company out of Sacramento and Roseville. They came to us to ask us to help them design a stealthy aircraft. It's unmanned. It's about 30 feet long, and it carries small diameter bombs. It has no pilot. It's remotely programmed and can take off and land, or it doesn't land, it recovers by parachute. But they asked us to help because we have experience in designing stealthy aircraft, and they did not. That company is called Kratos. They took the design that we developed for them, and they used it in their proposal submittal to Air Force Research Labs out of Dayton, Ohio. And they won the contract with that design against Lockheed and Northrop and Boeing and General Atomics. Then they come to us and said, since you helped us win the design, will you help us build this aircraft? So we agreed to help design and build their 3 prototypes. We are currently in production of that right now. The prototype, we're building the aft part of the fuselage, the very back end, where the engine's located, the engine mounts, the internal structure, the external skins. We're building the parachute bay doors. We're building the weapons bay doors, the wing leading edges, and a number of other parts and pieces for Kratos for those 3 aircraft. If the government decides to go in production of that, there's a good chance that we would be called upon to help with that as well. We located our company in Tehachapi. We started off in Mojave. I did consulting work at Scale Composites for about 3 years, and at the spaceship company for a couple of years. And as the company decided to branch from just tooling into composite manufacturing, we moved to Tehachapi. We've got great support from the city there, with a great talent base of people in the aerospace business, both engineers, composite fabricators, A&P mechanics, and the like, that live in the Tehachapi area that currently work either in Tehachapi, Mojave, Edwards Air Force Base, or in Palmdale with the other giants. So.
Great, thanks, Roger. And as we move left to right, we also move from east to west Kern, and helping to tell the story of our industry. And we have Matt Johnston, who I'm not sure if you've toured his facility. It's a 22-acre facility and a campus at Meadows Field. And really the training, right, where the next generation of pilots, et cetera, aeronautics professionals is going to come from. And so he's doing that right in our backyard. I did tour the campus. They have simulators, so they put me in one and it started smoking. I thought, you know, I played asteroids and time pilot growing up, so I assumed I would be really, you know, top notch. But he told me to leave the campus, so hopefully I'll come back. I may have destroyed the machine. Anyway, Matt, this is, frankly, he's positioning it as the premier West Coast facility for training. I think they have a satellite office campus in Oxnard as well, and the next generation of talent. So after Matt speaks, we're going to have kind of a Q&A talking about workforce and opportunities moving forward. But as a bookend, he does have a video to complement the PowerPoint in the previous video. So
it doesn't have bombs in it.
Oh, no bombs. Good. We don't want that. So if we have ability to play. Johnston.
We're kind of a little secret out here at Meadows Field, and well, thanks for having us today. Well, all of these things that happen in Kern County that revolve around aviation, and I don't think many people recognize how much aviation takes place in Kern County. We're fortunate that about 4 years ago we were able to come in and acquire this facility to provide training for aviation professionals as pilots and other support technicians to basically prepare all the people that need to take us on vacation. You get on planes, turn to the right, we take care of everything, turns to the left and's on the ground and in the offices to make everything get in the air and take us places. We do have a 22-acre facility. I invite all of you guys to come out and tour it and take a look. We're accredited, Part 141, FAA approved institution. We focus on really immersing the students into everything they need, fully focused in aeronautics only. And so we're able to complete a 4-year bachelor's degree in 3 years because they go year round. We keep them flying, we keep them focused. They complain about not having, spring breaks and all those great things. And I talk to parents and they're like, well, it's kind of like their freshman year. They should be able to get away with things. It's like, no, they're kind of like flying a $300,000 aircraft. They need to stay a little focused. So looking forward to the Q&A and telling you a little bit more about the different shortages that exist out there and how we're serving the community. But we're happy to be here in Kern County and fill the skies with a bunch of future pilots and other support technicians.
Great. Well, we'll start the Q&A. Actually, we'll go from Matt. Start with Matt about looking at your competitive position. So, what trends, be it global, national, regional, are affecting your either positively or negatively your competitive position as an educational institution?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
Actually, one of the things that people don't realize, aviation, again, it's one of those mysteries, right? People look at it and think, oh, it's unsafe, or but we're all willing to buy an airline ticket, get on a plane, and go somewhere. And we are in a period right now where we're experiencing, over the next 20 years, an incredible shortage to the supply of professional aviation professionals in all categories. I mean, from engineers to pilots to technicians that keep the planes flying. A Boeing study that was done just in July of 17 is projecting over 41,000 aircraft deliveries worldwide. The United States or North America being part of a considerable delivery. Pilots, over 637,000 pilots are going to be needed in the next 20 years. I mean, do the math and how many pilots that's going to be needed. Just in North America alone, 117,000 pilots. The technicians actually are in greater demand. There's over 648,000 worldwide technicians, mechanics that need to repair and keep these aircraft flying that are needed, just 118,000 alone in North America. And then the cabin crew that takes care of everything that's airborne and these crews, 839,000 cabin crew are going to be needed. So there's a lot of deficiency occurring. The military's just always been kind of the place where people, these airlines have been fortunate to receive their staffing, and that's just decreasing. And California Aeronautical University is, positioning ourselves to help serve this sector in all regards for all positions.
Great, thank you. And Roger, I know you alluded to some of the trends and opportunities as well on the global basis.
Yeah, as far as the engineers and aerospace professionals, there is a huge shortage. My company is hiring today. We've got multiple positions open. We have grown since, let's say, in 2015, early 2015. We were a company of about 6 or 7 people full-time and about a half a dozen contractors. Now we've got about 60 or 62 employees and contractors full-time, and our growth prediction is to double that within the next 12 months. And the opportunity, if this target that we developed were to go into production, is that could quadruple in a few years. So opportunities in aerospace is extraordinary. I can't emphasize it enough to the students in school. If you guys, got a lot of millennials here, so you've got a lot of students in schools to emphasize in science and math, and the opportunities are tremendous, and they're going to continue to be shortages. The DoD budgets are now increasing, so our field, all of us involved in anything DoD related is going to grow, at least over the next 6 or 7 years.
I just want to add that's part of the challenge, is educating people on these opportunities and getting out there and really, because it's such a gap in understanding at high school levels, counselors, people just only can relate to the kind of vacation aspect of aviation. But there's so much. I mean, these gentlemen represent that industry. I mean, we've got a sim bus that we run around to high schools and community fairs just to try to expose people that there's tons to do in the aviation.
And the wage levels are obviously much greater than the county average, or I imagine in terms of pilots, the wage, you say that the trend is a significant upwards as the talent pool dries up. The wage levels have increased significantly.
Oh yeah, as Scott mentioned, starting wage for a new graduate engineer is in the mid 60s, and so that's with no experience, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good salary to start with. Our shop technicians that do composite fabrication are making anywhere from $20 to $35 an hour. So this is a high tech industry, and so there's it pays well.
And Scott, you obviously have been dealing with the, this kind of goes into the talent attraction, retention, but with BRAC and et cetera, the competitive challenges and opportunities, not just human resources, but in terms of innovation competition. What are you seeing in terms of those trends?
Yeah, the competition there is pretty heavy. I think there's just a general demand in science and engineering fields across the country. So we have to compete with for all those kids coming out of school, especially entry level, and because we're more of a rural community that's kind of remote, we recruit a lot from the Midwest, and so when we talk about Kern County and try to attract young professionals to the Eastern Kern, we do talk about opportunities, not only the technical opportunities, but kind of where they're living. They all do site visits in truth and advertising. So so coming from the Midwest, though, a lot of them are familiar with agriculture, and a lot of them are also familiar with some of the alternative energy and the oil industry. So that's always something of interest. But primarily, the reason they come to the desert is for the technology and for the technical work that goes on. It's very interesting, and I think that one of the challenges is, since we do recruit a lot from outside of California, most of the new hires at the Navy base are imports, if you will, and so keeping them and retaining them is critical. And so quality of life and making sure that they have opportunity to raise their families in a healthy and prosperous environment is critical, and making also sure that they have opportunity for career growth. And I think that's another thing that the Eastern Kern with Mojave and with what goes on up at Tehachapi and down at Edwards Air Force Base, there's some opportunity for those who want to expand their career fields and their technical expertise, to stay regional, local, and but get different experiences. So I think that's really important. But there is a shortage of scientists and engineers, and making sure that we attract our fair share is hugely critical. I think one of the things we see from the millennials is they do have a real strong sense of service. And so really, coming into to our workforce and working in defense is something that that they all aspire to, and somewhat of a higher calling, if you will.
Well, we're hitting on some of these themes. Unfortunately, we only have a few more minutes, but I want to, in a nutshell, how each of you pitched Kern County, be it to folks coming back or staying here, or to that new talent pipeline of people not familiar with Kern County. What is your elevator? You're going down the elevator, let's say from the 4th floor. What do you tell them if you're in the elevator? Why they should come to this county?
Well, I can say one of it is the excitement of what's going on. We're talking about Eastern Kern. We're talking, and there's a lot of intellectual property being developed in the Eastern Kern and the aerospace and the renewable energy fields, and that's exciting in and of itself. The research department at China Lake is heavily involved in not only the sciences that are needed for defense, but for alternative oil sources and things like that. So I think one of the things that they're excited about is just what is going on in the area. Space access in Mojave is exciting, and what Roger's doing up at Tehachapi with stealth technology and composites is exciting. So I think that's the big thing beyond just what the other opportunities across the county are.
And Roger, the elevator just got to the bottom floor. Good job, they're coming.
Well,
So Roger?
The easy thing for us is once they come to Tehachapi
Yeah.
and they see Tehachapi, they think, okay, I can live here. This is a beautiful country. It's a land of 4 seasons. We've got great weather. And if you want to be in the aerospace industry at all, Tehachapi, Mojave, even Antelope Valley is the place to be. That is the cutting edge of anywhere in this country for aerospace, especially DoD-related type of work. Anything like that that's going on, it's happening right here in Kern County, in Tehachapi, Mojave, Ridgecrest, and even down into Antelope Valley and Palmdale. So it's an easy sell once they come to see Tehachapi, because it's a beautiful place to live.
Great. And then Matt,
We're on floor, 75 right now?
Well, you're probably on the second floor now.
They warned me about that. For all the reasons they said. I mean, we're talking on a daily basis to families that are looking to send their children to Kern County. And we're also, we currently employ 60 people on field. We're going to be at 150 students by the end of this year. And growing. We have 300 beds on campus. We're constantly explaining to the families what a good exposure Kern County can offer them for the centralization we have to LA, San Francisco. For the pilots, it's the flying conditions. I mean, the airspace in Kern County is absolutely, bar none, the best.
Most moderate temperature as well as climate in the country, right?
Everywhere. I mean, it's just it's good conditions all around for aerospace, and we're happy to be here and training the next generation of those individuals.
Well, and it's interesting segues. I like segues. Last night at the dinner for sponsor speakers, the chicken was called airline chicken. Apparently, it exists. But look it up, Google it. But credit to you and all you're doing at CAU. And a credit to you, the three of you, in terms of really at the forefront, the pioneers of, I think, where Kern County's headed and why the best practices are occurring in our backyard. So we all need to go, as I said, serve as ambassadors for amazing work. And thank you again for all that you do for our region.
Thank you.